there's just something about the holidays that brings out the crafter in all of us. And one of the most fun projects that I did was one Easter. I painted an Easter plate for each of the grandchildren that was going to come and eat with us. And each child had their own plate. Each plate was different. Each plate had their name on it. And I've got pictures of the table with the plates all around it. But I wish I had pictures of the look on their face when each of them saw their own plate and how much they loved it. And each of them got to take their plate home. This is another simple, easy project, fun to do, and that's why you can do many of them if you want to. And let me just walk you through it and see if I can show you how I did it. This one, for instance, is for our baby Luke. And here we have one for Catherine. And you can see the different techniques I use, the different designs around the border and everything. And we have this one. And I'm going to do one more. And what I'm using is something called porcelain. And it is to paint on china. And you let it sit 24 hours and then you bake it for 30 minutes in a 350-degree oven, and it's pretty permanent. You won't want to scrape it real hard, but you can use it daily and wash it. You don't want to soak it, but just wash it, rinse it, and dry it. The first thing I'm going to do is, and this is kind of similar to the Indian paintings that we did on the air one time. This is for a little boy, so I think that we're going to have a yellow sponge border on the inside of it. And the thing about this is it reminds me a little bit of watercolor because it certainly has its own personality. And if you think that you can control the strokes and the look of it and everything, you're not going to be happy with what you do. But if you just get your color on, let it do its own blending, let it do its own thing, and then after you bake it, it all blends together and just comes out beautifully. The colors change a little bit too when you bake it. Has almost an old world look to it. But I'm just going to put a little bit of sponging around like that. And if you'll remember, when you're using a sponge, you want to be careful not to go over the same spot unless you want that look, because every time you go over the same spot, you're going to change the look completely. Now, since this is for a little boy, I'm going to make a little brown bunny. And I've already got my pattern on here. And this was just so simple that all I had to do was put the pattern in the middle of it, and the rest of it you could do freehand. You can go ahead and use a pattern for the whole thing, but freehand is just quicker, it's more fun, and it has a more free look to it too. So I'm just going to paint this whole little bunny in this soft, kind of an ochre color. Okay, I've got that finished, and you see all these little streaks in here? The beauty of it is when it bakes in the oven, all of that just blends together, and it kind of loads up in places and gives it shadow and does its own thing. Now, let me see, let's make a little green ribbon. Little boys, we got to stay away from pinks, and so that they'll can take pride in their plate and want to take it home. Okay, it's mostly just getting the color on. You can let it dry and come back and put another coat, but if you get too many coats on, then it will start peeling off after it's baked. The patterns that I have available give you several different options for borders, and you can make up your own. But I think for this one, for the little boy, I'm going to do the X and the dash. And we'll just do that, I think, in green. And of course, you can, as I said, trace all this on, or you can do it freehand. And I'm just going to go all the way around here real quick, freehand. And I want to talk to you a little bit too about the lettering if you want to do it freehand, and if you don't want to spend a lot of time on it and everything. What I like to do, if I put a name or a word on something, I'll count the letters in it, find my middle letter, and do that letter first, right in the middle of whatever it is I'm painting. And then I'll usually start and work right to left. And that's just a real quick way to get your word centered. And I'll show you in a minute how we do that. Whoops, let's come on up here. And on some of these other plates, the blue that I used when I did the X's left kind of some jagged edges. And since this paint is not real friendly when you go back and try to make corrections, this oven, the heat in the oven is going to smooth it out, and it's going to be fine. It's just kind of a one-shot thing, but it's still interesting, and it's still an exciting project because you don't know exactly what it's going to look like till you're done. Okay, I like that. Now, we're going to put, this is going to be for Dylan. We're going to put Dylan's name on here. And we have D-I-L-L-O-N, and the middle letter is going to be an L. So right in the middle here, let me make sure I've got that dry enough. I'm going to write an L, an L, O. This seems kind of like a backward way to do it, but it saves time and it works. And then the I, and then the D, the first letter. Okay, and we have a finished plate. And when that gets baked, the colors are just going to be beautiful. Now the only thing left would be to outline it with this, and this comes in the same department where you get the paint. And I just outline it a little bit because you can still see the pattern on there. If you didn't see the pattern, I think I would leave it. But I hope you'll try this, and we'll do some more painting on plates sometime soon. And when I get back, there's something else I want to share with you. I'll be right back. In the time that we have left, I want to do sort of a quick demonstration on the Indian paintings. I've had a lot of response on that, and I just want to give you some tips and some ideas you might want to try yourself with watercolor. I'd just like to start with, first of all, a very simple thumbnail sketch. Almost just a suggestion of the face and the form of the figure, and that's all, because I want the painting to develop on its own. And I never really know what the expression on the face is going to be until it's finished, and it just seems like it almost develops itself. I like to start with a real wet wash. Of course, I don't take my paper down because I have to move it around and pick it up and tilt it. First of all, I have to get this really, really wet. And then I want her walking into the sunlight, so I'm going to put a yellow wash right in here. We'll just go right over her face because she's going to need some yellow highlights in her face too. And I think for the back I'm going to use some blue. Get a little bit of, tone it down just a little bit with burnt umber, and then make a wash. We'll go in the same direction that we did the sunlight. And if you can see this streak right here, when the painting is finished, that streak of sunlight will show up. You'll be able to see that. That will really enhance it. Now I want to get some real dark on right up here in this corner. Okay. And then a little bit down here. And then this is where I think I'll just go ahead and spatter a little bit more on there, like that. Okay, and this is where I like to pick it up and kind of encourage it to go in whatever direction it wants to, really. That's great. I like that. That's going to give me something to work with. Okay. And now, as soon as this dries, we'll come back and do the next step. Okay, now the force of the dryer forced the paint to run down a little bit more. Of course, it dries lighter, but look, we've already got some shadow in her face and we've already got some sunlight in her face. So that's going to work for us. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is start painting in the blanket that's wrapped around her. The paper is still a little bit damp, and that's going to be fine. I still don't like to tape it down because I have to move it around too much. It restricts me too much, I guess. And let me see, where's my good brush here? It's a good one right here. I'm going to start her robe. I usually use indigo blue and deep reds and deep greens. Use all the colors in every painting that I do, but I'll have a different color predominant in different paintings. In this one, I don't know which one is going to be predominant yet. So we're going to start with some red. Alizarin Crimson. We'll add some burnt umber to it because we want this to be really, really dark, and that's kind of hard to do with watercolor. But I'm going to come down here and just make a long stroke. I need to wet that. And I'm going to kind of come right off the page, and what I'm going to do is keep this really wet so that it won't dry a hard edge, because this I'm going to let run right down off the page. And I want some more dark in there, so I'm going to put some burnt umber in that. And just come on down, and once again I'm going to hold it up and let that paint run down and make its own folds and its own shadows. I'll just add a little paint right here and spray it and let that run down. Okay, and then has a mind of its own, but you can coax it. Sometimes you can fool it too. Okay, now the other side of the robe or the blanket. Let's see, let's get some phthalo blue, burnt umber. Get a nice thick color mixed up here, and we're going to come over on this side and let it just blend right in with the red. And by the way, this makes a beautiful color too for black hair. Now let's let some of this run into the red. Connect it a little bit. Okay. Then I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you how beautifully that the paper takes that paint and how that's running down. And you see the bottom of it, how it's running just like I want it to. Okay, now what I have here is like where the blanket is turned under, sort of makes a collar. So I'm going to paint, I think I'm going to make that a little more green. So I'm going to add some green to this. See, here we go. And then make the collar right there. And then I'm going to get her hair in, which is going to come over the top of the collar. And that I use phthalo blue and burnt umber. And this is going to be more of a dry effect. I don't want as much blending in the hair. I want that to be a little bit more defined. I'm going to just make her hair blowing, kind one over the blanket there too. One down here. Okay. Let's see, a little bit more I need to do here. I think that's the collar, so I'm going to make that green. And then we're going to really quick put some color in her face, and then we're going to break for a minute, go to the next step. And the color I'm going to use is burnt sienna. And put just a little red in it, and then make it a thin wash to give a beautiful bronze look. And I'm just going to cover the face and neck area with that mix. And then I'm going to come back, okay, with some blue. Just a touch of blue, get some shadow on this side of her face. You know, I really got her face a little too dark, so this is how I'm going to remedy that. On the light side where there's a little bit of sunlight, I'm just going to softly blot out part of that from the nose over. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to let this dry now. This is just my first step and first layer. And I'm going to let this dry and then come back, and I'll be adding colors to this and wetting it and adding different colors to give shadows. And then after that I'll detail it out. So we'll let it dry a minute and come right back. Okay, one thing I do want to do, I'm going to get some more yellow right up in here. So what I'll do is just wet it, not quite as much as we did when we did that first wash, but wet it like that and pick up some ochre and just pat it in a little bit. Brush it on out like this, and then I'm going to let it do its work. Hold it up. Get some yellow around her hair a little bit, and get some over in here too. You see, if you keep it wet, you can do a lot of good blending. Okay, now I'm going to work on her hair a little bit. Get a little more yellow in here. And show you how, show you how we can define that hair a little bit more. You can see it all blends in with the robe right now. It's hard to even tell a difference in it. So we've got dark on there, but we're going to make it a lot darker. We're going to darken that phthalo blue with burnt umber. Could even put some red in there. Bring some brown tones in it, and you want to get almost black. Just keep on, but till you get black, but keep some color in it. Keep some blue in it. And then it's going to come over here and make sure that's dry enough. Just start defining some of these waves in her hair. Got to keep this really, really dark when you're trying to define some of it from the rest of the blues. And another thing we do is we can go back and take color out, and we can use an eraser and lighten it up with real soft highlights. And also, after this dries, I can even come in with a darker color and define it even more, make even more details. Let's see. This is kind of wet, so I don't want to try that. Okay, we just sort of outline her face here with her hair. Okay. Now, do you see how the hair is starting to separate from the green there? And this is going to need a lot more work in it to tone that down, but just still make it look like her hair is blowing. And that's just the kind of thing that I'll spend a lot of time with. I'll also wet the back part here and get some color in it, maybe even a little bit of the red. I'll add a lot more blue in here, and I will do wet on wet. Make it really dark, but then it will also blend real nice. I'll deepen the green, and then I'll start adding some color to her face. So I'm going to work on that, and then we'll come back in just a minute. Okay, I want to show you some things I do. For instance, when I get a drip like that, and of course I don't want that to stay like that, so I'll just spray it a little bit and then let it take on a different look and join the others. And spray that a little bit there. Okay. Now, the hair is going to take a lot more work on it. I'm not going to be able to finish that in this segment. But I do want to work on her gown. I don't know if you can tell, but I've added some width to it. It was very long and narrow, and it's got a little bit of purple in it. And now I want to add a little bit darker right here to define it a little bit more. So let's see. Let's get some dark red by mixing some blues and reds. Actually come up with a purple. Okay, and then just lay a line along here. Part of this is wet, part of it's not. And then what we're going to do is spray it, spritz it really, just barely touch it with the spray. Let all that run down together. Okay. And then I got a little bit of blue back in here, and I think that helped too. That look better. Now, here's what I love is when the colors just mix on their own and just go their own way, do their own thing. And I will pat some color in here so these drips just won't be there by themselves. And I will also put some darker color, really dark color, right through here to separate it from her hair. I'm going to do a lot more work on her hair. And I'm going to let this dry so I can lay my arm down on it and then work on her face. And I'll be right back. We're almost finished with the first step of painting one of these pictures, and I want to show you one of the ways to lift color out. This needed to be blended, and I did want some highlights in there, so I just wet it, rub it very gently and very lightly, and I can either leave it like that or I can blot some more color out, and later I'll come back and add some more color in there too. I'm trying to define the collar. And then I will spend a lot of time working on this, brushing this out into soft folds and just trying different techniques, adding color, taking color out until I get it to look like I want it. And so sometimes we think watercolor is so unyielding and hard to handle, but there's a lot of ways to get around that. A lot of ways to make changes. And in the next couple of minutes, I want to work on this part right here. I hope we're getting a good shot of this. And you can just see how the water and the paper and the paint all just interact. And you know, while this is wet, I'm going to come in with some color where I just took all that color out. See how that just blended in perfectly. It was just wet enough. Add some more here. Okay, and then I will work on the hair quite a bit more, and the face I'll add some yellow in here. And on these types of Indian paintings, a lot of times I'll use a felt tip pen, a very fine point felt tip pen, to draw the face. It just simply gives the effect that I want. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It just gives the effect. And when that's finished, it will look similar to this, and it'll have a lot of the detail that this has in it. You can see I did draw the face in. I put feathers in. The hair is all defined. And then if we can get a shot of the robes, you can see how soft they are and how the folds just make their own folds and then just fade down to the very end of the page. And when I get that other painting finished, I will share it with you on one of our shows. And I hope you've enjoyed the demonstration. I've had a lot of requests to do another watercolor demonstration. And join me again next time, and we'll find some more things to do. Thanks for watching.